All right, the YouTube, can you hear me now? I just want to be sure you can hear me now. I reset it. So I'm hoping you can hear it, Heather. No, obviously you're not going to answer if you can't hear it, but I did my best of trying to restart it. So getting back to it though, I think you see what's going on. Number one, the things we talked about with the companion stocks. So I hope that makes sense about the companion stocks. The other thing, and we just talked about it. So you just had the ES sell off that much, 10 points. But the advanced decline refused to go lower. Yeah, that gets me nervous about shorting the ES, like I said. On the other hand, the NASDAQ sold off. It's had a little bounce, not a lot. And the advanced decline is starting to have another move down. So if I'm going to play anything to the downside, it's going to be NASDAQ stocks. So I just want to let you know what I'm doing in here. So definitely now I watch for any oversold rally. Like I said, I want to see on how it works off any oversold. So I could actually do this. I'm going to go put 4 charts with you. I got to get my 4 charts set up for you. All right. So here you go. Here is the NASDAQ. I'm going to take it on a day trading kind of point of view. So we're going to have an hourly, a 15-minute, a 5-minute, and I can put up a 2-minute. So what do you notice? And like I said, that's AutoZone. I was seeing if you were listening. The NASDAQ got oversold on a 15. It's still overbought on an hourly, but the point is when I'm day trading, I'm watching that 15 carefully. So right now, what you're watching is how it works off the oversold. If it works it off by staying in this zone and the advanced declines going down, yeah, I think it's going to have another leg down. But the verdict's still out, especially on a pre-holiday kind of day. But I just see what I was looking at and what I'm doing in there regarding trade. We saw that Broadcom refused to go lower down here. So I didn't mess with Broadcom. I wasn't anyway because it's a crazy. Well, I'll show you why I don't. I don't like this wide market. There you go, 50-cent wide. Why don't I like wide markets? Because if I shorted it at 865.20 and put a stop at 866, they'd probably fill me at 866.33. That's what I mean by wide markets. Now, at the very end of the day, yeah, we might play puts because they have tight markets that are right at the mark. But I was using that just as an example. That's another thing. You go into Market Chameleon and you find a similar stock with a tighter market. That way you can have tighter stops. So that's how I do it in there. So that's why in here I could not in good conscience mess around with the ES when the ES advanced decline refused to go lower and that magic MACD got under here. Now you can use an RSI, whichever one helps you identify low probability trades. And a low probability trade is to short this when this is oversold. So that's and on a 5-minute, it was oversold. So it's all just about probability. I mean, at least that's the way I do it. Then you have the other thing. This, exactly what we were talking about. When this had its sell off, this advanced decline refused to go lower. Now that's all the New York Stock Exchange stocks. This is just the S&P 500 futures, but it's a good indication. And as you see, when this went down on the upper left, this went up. So that's a good tell in my book, and it was oversold. Now that doesn't mean you have to buy anything, but you sure don't short. I call that shorting in the hole. So here's another thing. I'm going off of Nvidia, Microsoft. I mean, even though they're not perfectly correlated, if I see Nvidia blast above that black line, then Broadcom is less likely on the bottom right to fill that gap we were talking about, JC. So it's all about probability. That's the way I look at it in here. And still, now what am I going to do? Well, now I'm going to go to the trusty ES. The first thing, like I said, overbought, oversold, but really the first thing is chart patterns. The second thing is support and resistance. And the third is definitely the MACD. So you don't need the 2-minute MACD. We know it got oversold. But what do you see on this chart? All right, I'm going to do a chart pattern test. What does everybody see at 8 o'clock in the morning? There's your bull flag. There you go. Clear as day. So yesterday you had some bear flags. But the point is that you can wait. See, because that's your big rally in the consolidation. That's what I mean by working off an overbought well. So you could go all the way back. I'm sure we can find 8 million bull and bear flags. But the problem is everybody thinks everything's a bull flag. That's not a type bull flag. Never was. Here's a bear flag that just didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because like I said, first chart patterns, second support and resistance. I'm not going to short a bear flag at support. So definitely chart pattern, then support and resistance. How about back here? I'm just looking for consolidation patterns, not tops and bottoms. Well, here's sort of a quasi bull flag, but you see why it stopped. I mean, the more times you have little candles like that, the more important is the support and resistance. There you had a bull flag. You didn't have any resistance. Look at that. None. So these two were more likely to work. So it's just all about probability in my book. At least that's what I think. I mean, but that's what's worked for me for 42 years. Like I said, you see this here? Heck, this might be a bull flag. So all bets are off. If I saw this advanced decline on this little rally, if I would have seen this plummet, well, that's a whole different story. But we're not seeing that. So to me, there's not an identifiable chart pattern on the downside. On the upside, I'm just seeing the internals aren't great, which means it's a push, which means I don't have to do anything right now. That's how it looks to me. So here we go again. Ultra short term, ultra short term. You just saw that bounce. And look what happened to the advanced decline. They just didn't bounce. Now, this will make your head explode on that of do you buy, do you short? I just look for identifiable patterns. And unfortunately, at this time of day, they're not there. Now, you might say, well, Apple's a bull flag right here. The problem with that is all the resistance. Plus, if you buy here, you're going to make 10 cents. Is it really worth it? No. It'll just take up your capital and your psychological capital. So if I see a pattern, I need to have either the companion stocks have the same support and resistance or a real tight pattern. And I don't have any of that. And of course, it's going to happen at 12:30 when I'm off. But look at this. That's why we didn't touch Broadcom. So the Lam Research got over the black line. The NVIDIA got over the black line. That's the VWAP. And guess what? Broadcom stopped going down because it was too far under it. That's how I use it. So I think if you try to take a stock and just verbatim use the VWAP, look how many times you would have gotten shaken out. I use it in relation to other stocks. That's all I use it for. That's why I love the red and the green. So when Lam Research and NVIDIA turn green, you know not to short Broadcom, even if it looked like a quasi-bear flag. So that's, like I said, that's how I do it. So right now, to me, at lunchtime, there's only a lot of certain things I should do. Number one, I got to look at that advanced decline. And as you see, it stopped going up. So what are the first stocks to go down? Yeah, it's the stocks that refuse to go up. I'm not touching Broadcom. I would go more for the one too far over its VWAP. The only reason it didn't have an identifiable pattern. That's it. So right now, this is the next thing I'm going to be watching. Number one, there's no identifiable pattern. Number two, I want to see if this undercuts in here. And then I'll look at if this bounces, which it has. It's bounced what? About 40 points. Number one, what doesn't go up? And number two, does anything form a definable pattern? And at the moment, I don't see a definable pattern in any of the stocks I'm watching. So I just don't see them yet. So that means I miss a lot. So if I see identifiable pattern in Texas Instruments down here, I'd rather short it there. But I just don't see any identifiable patterns at the moment. And I think you see what I'm talking about, that when I don't see an identifiable pattern, I just can't bet one way or the other. You can just back away. I'm going over a ton of charts to try to find the identifiable pattern, and I'm having a tough time finding you like an identifiable pattern. Look at that. We didn't touch Lowe's and Home Depot. And one of the reasons we didn't touch these bottom ones is because the internals of the overall market were still good. Now, there'll be a time and a place later, but it just isn't there at the moment. Now, usually, and I'm just looking at everything, watching it like a hawk. Usually, what I do is this: is now I'm going to see you saw it get oversold. You saw a 15-minute get oversold. As you see, and now you want to see how it works off the oversold, like we talked about. So the first thing is if it goes only to here, like up to here, and there's some stocks that form bear flags, yeah, I'll play it to the downside. But I just haven't seen that yet. And so that's where I am at the moment, trying to figure what's my next move. And I'm seeing if there's a next move. The first thing, if you're not, when I'm not on, I would watch the ADD, which is the New York Advanced Decline, and the ADQD, that's all the NASDAQ stocks. As you see, they're refusing to go down. So that's probably not going to go down. What would make all this go down? Well, one is if the bond market out of nowhere just got destroyed, even though that didn't work. Well, it worked a little yesterday. Or if one of these big stocks has really bad news, or like a chip news that pulls down everything. But at the moment, I don't have enough reasons other than hope of doing anything. Like this, Microsoft. Does it look bad yet? No. Does it look like if it works this off like that and it stays here? Yeah. Then it could do like what JC is talking about. It could go and fill this gap. So it's all on how it works off in a short term oversold condition, which we don't have yet. And the other thing, if I'm quiet, I'm scrolling through every stock I watch, looking for bullish patterns and bearish patterns. I'm totally agnostic in here. There you go. I mean, you got to think this worked off its oversold pretty well. You can't watch the net change. So I think you see that if it gets over that, it's probably going to here. So, and that would help the NASDAQ. So I think there are a lot of patterns that look like Microsoft and Netflix. If the volatile ones start to falter, if one starts to falter, compared to, let's say, the rest of the market. So if that falls apart, then it's more likely that that falls apart. Now, I know there are a lot of people that say the market's extended relative to bonds, including me, but I have to just trade what's there. So you see what's going on now. Microsoft. We should put Microsoft against Netflix. Not in the same group, but I got to think if one breaks down, the other one's going to break down, or if one breaks up, the other's going to break up. So, I mean, that's what I'm watching down here. I can take off Lamb Research and we can put Netflix. There. So we know that these stocks have similar patterns. So that's what I'll be watching. I don't see a discernible pattern at the moment, other than the advanced declines now refuse to go lower. I mean, as you see in here, since I've been on, there's a lot of flatlining going on. So you have like a Lamb Research that's stuck right here at support. I'm not trying, that's got a wide market too. I'm just using this as an example, but it's stuck at support and it's stuck in this resistance zone. I don't know if you'd call it here or in here, but that's all of a point. So it's stuck in that zone. I play a lot of rectangles, by the way. Same thing, consolidation patterns. So I usually don't like sell it here and buy and play the bounce trade. I'll do it with like a tighter market stock like Caterpillar, but I'd rather short something when it breaks or buys when it breaks up. The problem on these, if this breaks up, it's going to hit resistance. If it breaks down, it's going to hit support. So right now, unfortunately, it's still a push. So here you go. Here's Microsoft forming that little thing. But the likelihood of that breaking down then up goes down if a similar chart is breaking up, not down. So that's why I have so many charts up, so I can get a feel of companion stocks. And on one set of screens, I have this. So actually, this screen fell off yesterday. It was a nightmare. Luckily, it wasn't while I was presenting. So I does everybody know what a verse amount is? This one doesn't have a verse amount, so I glued in a verse amount adapter, and it didn't work. So luckily, we have cats. The cats weren't under it, so that was the best thing about it. So the ATR trailing stop, I don't really use with the advanced declines. I just a lot of times I alternate between different stocks, so I just left it up. But I don't really use it for that. I guess you could try, but I usually don't use it for that. You know, it's not a bad idea because we had a sell off yesterday and then a rally. Did it work? And in answer your question, It's 9 and 2.9. So it's a big point of contention with me, and I'm constantly changing this to exponential or simple. But that's the one I'm using. But let's see. Let's go back and see. Did it work like back here on yesterday? Not really. Sort of, but not on a 1 minute. It probably worked on like a 5 minute. Let's see. But then you get all those wiggles. So not really. It doesn't work that well. So but it's a great question of, do I use it? But I usually don't. The only reason I have it up here is today I'm just watching this versus that to determine if I'm going to buy something or sell something. That's all. And that advanced decline called it. And then you have the next thing. So you have that Netflix went up. Microsoft didn't really move, but it didn't break either. I'm still not sure on these. I think the verdict's still out. Now, another question you probably have, and JC, this is a valid question with the gaps. And I'm just going to take a 2 time frame. And anybody else has a question, don't hesitate to ask. I'm not going to bite your head off. And when I started, I just bugged everyone on the floor, and I was so excited about it, of learning. They nicknamed me Tinkerbell. So just let you know, one of our subscribers is friends with Sosnoff, of Tasty Works, and he went to dinner with him, and my friend said, do you remember KRS? They're like, not really. That was my badge. And they said, Chris Brecher. Oh, Tinky. Yeah, they knew me for 8 years as Tinkerbell. But I bugged everybody with questions. So the more questions, the better, just to let you know. But getting back to it. The gap. So you were asking, JC, what's the likelihood of that filling? Well, if I saw a bear flag on the QQQ, I think that could fill. But I don't see that. I don't see the advanced decline deteriorating. I don't see it. Now, if you get a bear flag, let's say Wednesday, because usually Monday it goes up. Let's say you got a bear flag on Wednesday and it's still in this zone. Yeah, the path of least support is down here. So just keep that in mind. I have a lot of pit stories, or just about the characters from the floor. So, and it's a true story. If you haven't heard it before, I play in a golf outing I did with the IBM people and the IBM pit. And we'd always meet in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, playing at Black Wolf Run, which has great courses. And so a lot of these traders were, on their own, not with their family, and they go crazy. And this one guy got really wasted and he couldn't remember where his car was. And the next day he hired a helicopter to go out over Sheboygan to find it. And what's funny is I've told my wife and my kids that for a long time. We went to the floor like 4 years ago. The guy that's the head of the golf outing is actually one of the people left. And I said, is that story true? And he just puts his head down and shakes his head. So that's a true story. So just there are a lot of trading stories. There are a lot of character studies. I mean, stories from the floor. And sure, I'll tell more if you want them. So, but those are true stories. I could tell you about when I saw the people make the most money I've seen in like 15 minutes and the most I've seen lose. And the worst I saw in one day was seeing somebody lose 52 million. right in front of me. So right in front of me. So just to let you know, that was the 87 crash. Yeah, the 87 crash had a ledge. I was long puts. He was short straddles. So he actually left for 5 years. Interpol was looking for him. They finally found him. All that's on internet, by the way. I'm not embellishing. That really happened. So that's interesting story. So just want to tell you. But next time I get on the free site, next time I get on the dual broadcasting, sure, I'm happy to go over those. I like to go over ideas, but as you see right now, I think you see working off it's oversold really well. I think you see that a mile away. So that's where we are right now. And then where could it go? Well, you're at this resistance. Is there any other resistance? Let's find it. Well, really in here, those big old reversal candles, that's about 4,500 right in there. Now, this is for the futures, which in there, but right there. Now, this gap was the rollover gap when they went from June to September. So then the ES trades at a premium. So that one is less likely to fill. It does in other pits like corn pit, but in here, no, it doesn't usually fill. I mean, it's not reliable, but theoretically, you go to that, all that schmutz. In fact, let's go to the beginning of 2022 and really see where the resistance is. And then I got to get going, unfortunately. There. You see all that area right in here. Really in let me move it over. There, in that area. You had the bear flag on the way down, so that'll probably be resistance, that 4,500. Then you have a lot of resistance at those double tops at 4,600. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, by the way, I think everybody looks at the JP Morgan collar. A lot of people talk about that collar where they sold calls to buy puts. When the higher that the markets go above where they sold the calls, the more stock they have to buy. I have no idea why everybody thought on Twitter that it would go down. So I know about all kinds of rebalance things, and they can always do it early, which means all of that. So that's where I am. I hope you enjoyed this and have a great long weekend. And I will talk to you next week whenever I'm scheduled. So thanks for being with me and thanks for the good questions.